Hello and welcome to Edinburgh Business Stories. EBS is hosted by myself, Alex Richards of Umore, a video production studio based in Edinburgh and Bristol, and Alan Smith of Action Coach, providing business coaching throughout Edinburgh and the Lothians. If you aren't already, remember to subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. A big thank you to Rathbones for partnering with us on this episode. Rathbones. Invest well, live well. Craig, Debbi, so great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Great to be here.
So give us a snapshot of who you guys are and what you guys do.
There you go.
My name is Debbi McCulloch. I am the CEO at the Spartans Community Foundation, so a social enterprise and charity that's been running in North Edinburgh since December 2008. I've been part of that journey since January 2009 when I joined the organisation as a football development officer. So I think I'm in my 17th year now, and have just progressed as the organisation has grown over time. And I suppose my role is really to lead the organisation, to be a successful social enterprise so that we can use the power of sport and football to engage with local people and change their lives for the better through youth work, educational opportunities, physical health and wellbeing programmes, and also community engagement. So fantastic organisation to work with, and I'm really privileged to be in the role that I am.
Great. You played, right? Back in that? No.
Yeah, back a long time ago. Yeah. So Craig Graham, I'm the chairman at the Spartans Community Foundation, the charity and social enterprise that Debbi mentioned. I'm also chairman of Spartans Football Club, the adult section, or the adult company. So I started with Spartans as a player between 1984 and 86, a long time ago. I then headed off with work up to Aberdeen with Shell, and then went down to London, and then came back up and started playing again in the 94-95 season. I was a goalkeeper, and you see loads of broken fingers in my hands still. The goalkeeper gloves weren't as good going back to these days. And then, we've grown from there, from 3 adult men's teams across the whole Spartans family to where we are now. So there was a role in these days called club captain at Spartans, which was equivalent to the chairman. We didn't have a chairman. So the 3 adult men team, I became club captain, I think, in 1996. And I'm still doing that role, unfortunately. But and through time, I'm sure we'll get onto the story of how the foundation evolved.
And Craig, just before, off camera, you obviously kind of drew us a little diagram as to the setup. Could you maybe try and articulate that just now? Because I thought it was really helpful before we get into the conversation.
Yeah, there's 3 entities in what we call the Spartans family. So there is the Spartans Community Foundation that Debbi mentioned. So it's a social enterprise. We have built and run the setup up at the Vanlock Community Stadium. That's the foundation. Our turnover is about 2.5 million. We had 77 employees on the payroll last month. So it's a big organisation. And then there are 2 footballing entities, as it were. The Spartans Football Club Adult, which is our men's and women's adult team, and our men's under 20, which isn't allowed part of the SFA. You're not allowed to be a charity. So it's the men's team and women's team that play in the semi-professional leagues in Scotland. And then the Spartans FC Youth, that it's another charity for boys and girls between the ages of 8 and 18. There's about 600 boys and girls plus all the adults who help and volunteer. And Debbi's also a trustee of that. So these 3 organisations combined to what we talk about as the Spartans family. And round that, we have literally got, every single week, hundreds of volunteers. Adults, and a lot of the older children are delighted to volunteer as well. So we're very lucky.
Great. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Debbi, got to start somewhere. Debbi, take us back. How did you get involved? What's your journey into the Spartans world?
Can I just say, Debbi, we've got to start somewhere.
We've got to start somewhere. Well, it's like, I could eeny, meeny, miny, moe it. And I went with you.
Debbie tells her story far better.
Yeah, so I was up in Ross County. I graduated from Aberdeen with an honours degree in sports coaching and sports development. I worked at Dundee United for around about a year after that. Moved up to Ross County for 5 years working in their football development department. Loved my time up there. Loved travelling the Highlands and Islands. Fantastic place. A wonderful experience. But being from the Central Belt and being ambitious, I had a real desire to move back home and closer to my family. And yeah, through knowing people and through having a couple of mentors that have been key throughout my journey and career in football, Spartans came up. And I got invited to meet with Dougie Samuel at the time, who was the CEO. And the facility was being built at that time. I knew very little about Spartans. I went on their website. At that time, the website wasn't particularly, it's one of those things like, when you're from Glasgow, as a kid, you don't really come to Edinburgh. And if you go to Edinburgh, you go to Princess Street. Yeah. And you just knew Hearts and Hibs. So I was like, who's this club? Like, what is this? And I was really intrigued. And after spending a couple of hours with Dougie and understanding the vision and the model that the foundation was going to deliver alongside the football club, I was hooked. And yeah, I thought this is an opportunity that I can't turn down. It was a blank bit of paper to really build a football development programme that could provide commercial income to the social enterprise element of the foundation. And I thought, this is really exciting. Plus I thought, I've never lived in Edinburgh and I quite fancy living in Edinburgh. So let's do it.
Brilliant.
And the rest is history, really.
This episode of Edinburgh Business Stories is brought to you by Rathbones. Rathbones is one of the UK's leading wealth managers with an office right here in the city of Edinburgh. They have a long history of helping people plan and invest for the future they want and believe there's one word you should live by: well. Well learned, well invested, well timed. Maybe you're scaling a business or climbing the career ladder and you're earning bonuses, dividends, and a significant salary. Success is rewarding, but it often leaves you time poor. Rathbones understand the demands of business ownership and professional careers, because when you plan well, you can grow well, live well, and sleep well. Wherever you are on your wealth journey, Rathbones can help you go further, and they do it all well. To learn more, visit rathbones.link/EBS. Rathbones, invest well, live well. When you invest, your capital is at risk.
And Debbie, can I just go back on that? So what? I mean, obviously we've been to the facilities now, but what was there back then when you started? What was it? Just a football ground and a shed, or?
Yeah, no, it was. There was an AstroTurf pitch and there was a grass pitch.
Right.
So there was two facilities.
Yeah.
There was dressing rooms, a very, very small office that would not be fit for purpose today.
Right, okay.
A small kind of club room.
Yep.
Obviously the capacity of that is kind of doubled, tripled over the years. But it was brand new. It was exciting. You could see the engagement from the local, kids. I could see even the first time I met Craig, he was on the pitch training some of the young goalkeepers, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, this is the chair of the organisation, and he's got a Stano top on and his goalie gloves on. Okay, this is different, but this is really refreshing as well.
Yeah.
So the facilities were great, in terms of what was there before. It was just wasteland, burnt out cars, an area where youths just used to hang out beside Ainslie Park Leisure Centre. So yeah, the redevelopment of the site was crucial to really changing the neighbourhood and changing the local community.
Right, okay. And that was in 2009 when you joined Spartans.
Yes, that's
right?
correct, yeah.
But the foundation started in 2006.
Yeah.
So do you want to give us a bit of the history then of the how that all came about?
Yeah, so we, the Spartans at the time, initially, there was only, as I said, the 3 adult men's teams, and the first team played at City Park. That was an old rundown ground that we leased from the council. And the council, it backs onto Ferry Road, and the council had an offer for 8 million for housing on it, which they thought was a good idea, but they had a lease with us. So they said to us, if we give you 1 million of that 8, would that help you build somewhere? So we had a look at what it might cost us to build something, and it was going to be 3.5 million. But we thought, well, we'll take that on. So, and we realised at the time that we could do a bit more than just be a football club. So Dougie Samuel, who became our chief exec, we employed him part-time to do research. So we did lots of research around North Edinburgh, Pilton, where we're based. We talked to schools, we talked to old folks groups, we went to library, Dougie did loads of working time. What does this local community need? What would make a difference? And we also went overseas. Dougie went to Germany, Denmark, I think in Sweden, and looked at what did community football clubs do over and above just playing football. So we came up with a blueprint. So when we looked at the drawings we had, and also we had to raise the money. So we had to produce a story that said, we're going to build something a bit more than just a football club. We're going to use a football club to make a difference. And so we're successful. We managed to raise the money with a bit of loan funding. And we started, we founded the charity in 2006, obviously just as a shell company. Obviously I had to start, doing research and raising the money, and then awarded the contract to build the site. And it was December 2008 when we moved in. So it was, and Debbi was one of the first, I think we had 4 employees for our first payroll run. So from 4 to 77 is pretty good going.
It's amazing.
In a long time.
But it's great. And that obviously you were Dougie obviously sold the vision to you as well, and you bought into that pretty much straight away, Debbi, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the point of difference for me was the football club paying the foundation to run the facility so that they could have a successful social enterprise and therefore reinvest those profits back into our social impact programs. Yeah. That's never really kind of heard of, because ultimately the football club will run the stadium and the facility. So I could see a fantastic opportunity, one, to make quite a bit of money, but 2, more importantly, reinvest that for good, which has always been an important value of mine. So
go and just build on that bit about money, social enterprise, charity, and money, and how you kind of pick your way through that. Because
I think we've still got a bit of a stigma around that in terms of a lot of charities don't find it sexy to make money. However, we're in a landscape now where funding is becoming more challenging. So therefore, I think charities should look more to be more self-sustainable and have, a business element to their organisation. For me, it was quite simple. It was just like, let's build a community coaching commercial program that can get as many children active, but also bring in income that we can reinvest back into our youth work and education programs. And I've just always had a real desire to do well for that, because you then see the impact of what your work is not only doing for the individuals that are paying for it, but also the people that need the help the most. So it works really well for us in terms of that being 1/3 of our kind of income streams within the foundation. That, we have the pitch hire, we have the hospitality, we have the community coaching, that we know we can rely on that income every single year to give us a solid foundation to ultimately be successful, but also be significant as well.
Say your 3 again: pitch hire, community coaching. What was the third?
And hospitality.
Hospitality, so of course, yeah.
Cafe bar. The cafe bar income, as we talked about.
Well, we did speak about this off camera, but again, your pies are good.
We try to make sure that everything that we do is the best that we can make it, so that everyone has a positive experience when they come to the Vanloch Community Stadium, whether that's for a football game or that's to come for walking football or sport and memories programme. We try to create that social village that has an open door policy and allows people to come for good pies or a good pint, or actually just to meet people and have a chat.
Yeah, great.
So how did your development, Debbi, go from being a football development coach into what is now the main woman?
I'm not too sure. Maybe I don't think it happened via default. I think I think I love the organisation. I love Spartans family. I love the foundation. I'm hugely passionate about what we do. Dougie, obviously, and Craig have worked extremely hard to build a successful organisation, which has allowed me to grow as a leader, as a person. And I think through that, it's just always been that, you know, I think I've had something like around about 8 different roles within the foundation. I think at one point I was a football development manager and hospitality manager at the same time. But we've just evolved, and through that we've tried and tested different methods and different roles and different departments. And I've always seen myself as taking the responsibility of being a leader very seriously. And through that, it's just allowed me to have a really positive experience and journey within the foundation that, you know, thankfully led to me having the opportunity to apply to be the CEO and to be successfully recruited.
And over the course of time then, you've obviously been involved, Craig, for quite some time as a player as well, but over that time, we often ask people about, you know, what are some of the lucky breaks that you might have had, or joyful moments, but also some of the tough times as well. Can you maybe, you know, just tell us about some of? Well, start where you want, really, lucky or tough.
Oh, it's quite interesting. More recently, I think because we're at a scale now, is that the tough times don't seem as tough because we don't have an impact. But in our very early days, there was 2 things. First of all. Against our better judgment, we let the council manage the build project because they said they had a better vehicle to reclaim VAT than we have, and ended up £500,000 overspent. And so that was pretty tough because we only got to the £3.5 million we had to raise by borrowing quite a lot, and so I had to borrow even more. So that was tough. And then when Debbi just arrived, that winter, the snow came, and for 3 weeks we were closed. We had no income. You know, and that was no income through a cafe bar, no income through pitches. So, but, you know, you then lean on the Spartans family. So, if you remember, I had the 3 models. So the football club and the youth section provide some short-term funding, because at that point our borrowing was at the stuff. We knew we would get through it, but it was just a bit unfortunate that it happened in month 3 of our programme.
Oh, my
that we had no income. So, I mean, you know, over the years, interestingly, for me, some of the downtimes are about, we spent hours working with a lot of young people, hours and hours and hours, looking after them, helping them flourish, helping them grow. And there's been some phenomenal success stories. But now and again, there's 1 or 2 people that, for whatever reason, don't come through. And so there's over the years, I'm not going to talk about the details of some of them, but there's some sad stories about people who we really helped. They had a tough upbringing. We helped them along the way, but for whatever reason, they didn't quite make it. So yeah, the nature of youth work, you said before, you're involved in youth work. There's so many success stories, but now and again, there's just a story that doesn't quite have a happy ending. So
Tell us a success story.
It's maybe a bit controversial, but I would say COVID was a success story for us. And listen, I know personally myself, losing my grandmother during COVID, how tough an experience it was for everyone, and that it wouldn't have been a successful period. But I think for us as an organisation, it allowed us to show our ability to be able to adapt and engage better with other local third sector organisations and work closer with people. I think, you know, when public sector organisations were closing their doors, we kept our doors open. We had to restructure a lot in terms of, you know, nobody had heard of furlough. It was, you know, we had to manage our staff's wellbeing, their safety as well. But we obviously changed the facility into a food distribution hub. It became the main focal point for ensuring that, you know, local children that got free school meals could still get access to that. We did a lot of food distribution, weekly parcels and shopping for families that we knew were isolated and couldn't afford the situation that they were in. So for us, I think it allowed us to look through things in a different lens, but certainly allowed us to collaborate much more significantly with other organisations. And on the back of that, I think that has allowed us to develop some really strong partnerships, which is ultimately starting to influence systematic change, specifically around poverty and the challenges that people face in our local community. And I think if COVID hadn't happened, would we be where we are today? No, I don't think we would be. And I think as we continue to kind of strive to be that influencer, to have that systematic change, then ultimately, I think that's us providing our role as an anchor community organisation to the wider society, but also specifically North Edinburgh.
Of course. Can I just ask a detailed question about the food distribution element of that? What was involved there?
Yeah, so we basically, changed our whole community wing, which is 4 dressing rooms. And we ran basically a drop-off service for organisations like Social Bite, who were partners with us. We also had help from Bailey Gifford and Walter Scott as well. So we would literally get like 800 packed lunches dropped off every single day. And then we had a network of volunteers. So some from the Spartans family, some new, some from the local community that then came to the facility every day. We had a driver kind of map drop off.
Wow.
And we would deliver them to the young people every single day, along with our weekly food shopping parcels, which I think were around about 60 to 70 families per week. So the staff would deal with all the logistics. We would get the food to the families. And as I said, that allowed us to bring in different organisations as well that didn't want to close their doors, mainly third sector organisations, to help support the delivery of that project.
That's amazing, really. It is interesting because you think of football and you just think of the pitch and kicking a ball. But actually, did you ever, when you were in Ross County, think that you would actually be kind of coordinating food delivery?
No,
it's just bizarre, isn't it? But it's amazing.
I remember because COVID hit in March, and I remember having my annual appraisal with Dougie in the December before that, and saying, I feel like I need a wee bit of a different challenge here. And then this happened, and then I remember myself and Dougie standing in Bellevue. Cash and carry. And we were buying around about £1,000 worth of goods for local pantries so that they could be restocked. And I remember us both looking at each other and thinking, how are we here? What? Because that's what we used to do in the early days. We would do the cash and carry run, or someone would do it. And we were back at this place for completely different reasons, but ultimately still the right reason, which I think was really important. And that was to support people and to make sure that they had what they needed to be able to survive through COVID. But yeah, logistically, very challenging. There was obviously all the health and safety element that, we've got expertise in that, but not in terms of a pandemic and a virus. So there was, it was a fantastic learning experience for myself, and I think for the organisation as a whole. Yeah.
I mean, there was 2 things. It really enabled us to reach a lot of people we hadn't previously dealt with. So we had dealt with the children in schools. We didn't necessarily hadn't previously dealt with the families or the people who had come to our facility. But another thing as well is North Edinburgh, around Pilton, where we are, is still a strong cash economy. So when a lot of the mums and dads weren't working, there was no money because they were getting paid cash. So they were literally, they couldn't be part of a furlough scheme. So it was a really challenging time for them. So for us to turn up every day, and for many families once a week with a big food shop, it was game changing for them. So it gave us an opportunity to change everyone's perspective of us. And interestingly, since then, 2 of the roles we produced, it was a sort of trigger for us to think. We deal with a lot of kids who are in challenging situations, and we help them when they come along and when we work with them. But we weren't necessarily getting to, what are the root causes of the challenges that these children have? So we now have 2 family support workers whose job it is to understand by talking to their teachers, talking to our youth workers, talking to whoever's dealing with, and then helping the families to understand what are the challenges you're facing at home, is there things we can help with. I think everything from housing issues or to the benefit situation to families. So the impact of these 2 family support workers in the last 4 or 5 years has just been phenomenal.
And you mentioned earlier as well about the childcare, after school care, I think, and the impact that can have. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we obviously for the last 2 years delivered an extra time programme through funding from the SFA and the Scottish Government, which is obviously to help try and eradicate child poverty, but also, like Craig said, drill deeper into what are the challenges that the families actually face. Because ultimately, if Craig comes to Footy Club on a Friday night after school, he's going back to the same environment that he's going back to every single day. So how do you influence change in the family home to be able to get them out of that survival mode and into that kind of thriving mode. So we have specific hubs at I think 5 or 6 of the local primary schools in North Edinburgh that we provide support on a weekly basis during term time and holiday time. That's specifically for children that might need support after school and the family maybe can't afford that kind of childcare element. But also we'll try and bring mum, dad, granny, grandpa, uncle, auntie, whoever it might well be, into the fold to say, how can we upskill you? Like, what are the challenges in your life? Is it that you're not employed? Is it that you want to volunteer? Is it that you want to do this workshop or this training course? And we'll provide the support network around them to be able to allow them to ultimately flourish and potentially get them out of the environment and that kind of circle of poverty that ultimately families do evolve in. Yeah. So it's a fantastic programme, and the work that Karen, our family support worker, does, and Jenny as well. I mean, some of the challenges are just horrendous. And if I go back to COVID, one of the stories I always tell is that we had a butcher that used to give us meat every single week. And in that, you know, the families would get in their weekly shop, they would get a fresh chicken, bacon, sausages, like really good stuff, top quality stuff. And we were dropping it off to a family that was just down the road, and the mum came out with a bag of the butcher meat, and she says, I can't accept this anymore. I'm really sorry. I'm having to put it in the bin every single week. And we said, okay, right. Is it dietary requirements? How can we help? Because that's a question that we'll always ask. And she said, I don't have a cooker.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, and one of the great things about being a third sector organisation is that there's very little red tape and bureaucracy. There's a huge amount of governance, okay? We do our work very, very well, and we do it in the right way. However, we just went down to Argos and got a cooker and dropped it off. You know, she didn't have to fill out 16 forms, have 3 telephone conversations, you know, and that's impact. That's changing someone's life so that they can get nutritious food, they can cook meals as a family, sit down as a family and have meals. And small things like that you're able to help with, whether it's through the Extra Time programme or it's through our youth work and education, can be a game changer for these families.
Do you know, that's a great story as well, by the way. I can almost feel it inside, you know, when you hear that kind of stuff. Were you there when the cooker was delivered? And
no, I wasn't.
I'd love to have seen the reaction.
Yeah, I mean, like, just to be able to like resolve that in a couple of hours where you can give that bag of fresh meat back and give someone something that, you know, they've never had or not had for a very long time it's a real privilege. But that's ultimately what we try to do. We want to help people in the best way that we possibly can and change their lives, so that a lot of the families that we work with and the young people, they're in that crisis mode, and we do very well at getting them out of that crisis mode. But for us, it's again the next stage. If they start to thrive, how do you get them to continue to thrive? Because a lot of the time you'll just focus on getting them out of crisis and you go, right, okay, yes, you've done it, well done. But actually it's the next steps and the support that they need to be able to make sure that they can achieve that's the most important.
Craig, go on.
No, I was just going to say, for Debbi, one thing we pride ourselves on is to be innovative and creative about the programmes we run and how we do that. And to do that, we're not proud of it. We often just steal ideas from others. So we're quite fortunate. We've done trips to the big football foundations down in England, which are very well supported through their television money. So whether it be Arsenal or Brentford or Man United or whoever. So we enjoy going, seeing what they are doing, seeing what's different.
I think it's really important for us to learn from others. Around about what we deliver. Our culture as an organisation and a business has been key around that, in terms of us growing. Like, with growth, it's great, but we've doubled in size in the last 3 years.
Right.
And like, it's been a bit like, oh, right, okay, like let's try and, look at this from a different aspect. And when we visit organisations across the world, that can spark ideas, and we can take their ideas and try and implement them within the foundation if we think that that's suitable. And again, that learning aspect is really key to us being innovative and trying to do things in an alternative way, because we ultimately know, specifically around poverty, that it's not people that make communities poor. It's systems and services that make people poor. And for a very long time, the systems and services haven't changed. So therefore, they're not working, because we're still in levels of deprivation and poverty within this city that are completely unacceptable, in my opinion. So how do we work with the third sector organisations to be able to change that ultimately?
As David said, we deal with a lot of people that are in crisis, and a lot of the children we're also dealing with are in the middle band in primary school, where they don't really get the extra help because they can just about survive on their own. They're not necessarily the brightest and clever in the class, so they're not necessarily self-starters. So one of the things we picked up from a lot of the visits down south was, well, how do you give them something to flourish? And one of the areas we've invested heavily in within our education team is our STEM work, our technology work. Very fortunate, one of our guys, David Service, who leads that activity, is an unbelievably charismatic guy. And it's like the Pied Piper, the young people doing. But it's giving, in that case, often the geeky kid who would sit in the corner and be quiet, something for them to come to. It's their own youth club. They're out in the front of the class showing how their skills with working the tools and the techniques and the coding stuff that we do. So I think it's important for us to keep on learning, keep on seeing what others are doing, taking the best practice and making sure that we provide something for everybody. Across a classroom setting. And some of the stories I've heard from these children we normally deal with them initially in primary school, so there may be primary 5, primary 6, primary 7, but then seeing them continue to link into David, they come down to a youth club when they're a bit older, they've got that interest in science and technology and where they're going to take it going forward. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. And how open then are the other foundations? You mentioned some of the clubs down south and I think even overseas. How open are they to sharing that best practice?
Oh, they're fantastic, because I think they're like us. We host at least one visit a week and have done for 15 years from all.
One a week?
Oh, it's quite astonishing. The most bizarre was the group from Outer Mongolia, who would give them a pie, and it was all obviously done through translators. They asked for a spoon. We couldn't quite, how are you going to eat a pie with a spoon? But no, they tucked into this Scotch pie with a spoon. That was the most bizarre. So we get people from all organisations, mostly sport related, to see what impact you could have. So they were, but no, they're always hugely, probably the largest one we've been to is probably over to Boston. The Red Sox Foundation win lots of awards. The baseball team have a big foundation. They're turnover something like $12 million. It's massive. But what they do in education and supporting children, young people in Boston, obviously the US education system is different. If you want to do really well, you have to be heavily subsidised. And they have a system called Red Sox Scholars, which the whole system is replicable for Scotland, but we can pick bits out of that to say, well, how do you help someone who has got exactly the right attitude, exactly the right potential, but they're stuck where they are? What tools do they need to springboard them forward so they can really succeed? And it's that type of thinking where our STEM work came from, because if we provide them with skills that they can't normally get in education, if we put in the R&D to work out what's best for them, and we just give people the opportunity, and then they'll flourish. So all these organisations are great. And likewise, there's the ones that come to us. No matter who you're with, you always learn one thing. Every single one, there'll be something they say about their structure or their fundraising or what they do that we'll learn from as well. So it's very much a two-way street when we go around.
It's impressive. Do you know what? Obviously, more often than not, this is obviously Edinburgh Business Stories, so it's businesses, more traditional businesses, I guess, that we would have on. But what kind of really strikes me, and I'm sure you as well, Alex, is that idea of we're on a mission. It's the impact. We're really close to. My question is, How do you know when you're doing a good job, and what are the metrics? You know, we would always talk about metrics and what KPIs, but what are yours? How do you know that you're doing a good job or you're progressing?
I think a lot of the stuff that's based around education is around attainment, and also like attendance as well. You know, if we've got pupils that are particularly disengaged with school, most of our senior alternative school pupils will leave with a national award, which they would never have achieved within mainstream education. So there's certain things like that. How you make someone feel, stories, you know, like the cooker, I think are really important. So there's a mixture of that quantitative and qualitative data that you can use. For me, I'm really driven by the local community. I've lived in North Edinburgh myself for 12 years. I made that conscious decision because if I'm going to represent the community, then I feel as if I should live in it and be part of it. And I think having a real close relationship with the community and understanding what they need and then delivering on that can give you a real sense of what you're achieving. We still have KPIs and we still have outcomes. However, I think moving away from the outcome approach is something that's been quite refreshing for ourselves, where we learn by doing ultimately. And we try to share that learning and be reflective on it to see how we can do things better and what we would change. So it's very different to private sector and public sector. And it can be quite challenging to capture that impact and understand it. I mean, we're in the process right now of writing a kind of monitoring, evaluation and learning strategy for the organisation around about how do we capture our story better, how do we tell it better, because I think we're not very good at kind of shouting about it, because like we don't really want to shout about people being in dire straits and how we've helped them.
I know what you mean.
That's not what this is about. You have to get the balance right. And as Craig says, you know, we've got some fantastic stories, we've got some sad stories. But I think for us, in terms of our success, is understanding how people feel about our programmes and services and the impact that's having on their lives. And we try to review that as much as we possibly can with the participants and the people that are part of the programme. Because as I said before, it has to be driven by them.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because what Debbie's just went through is an absolute critical element. And also, at the end of the day, we get more private sector funding than public sector. Public sector is hugely competitive and there's less of it. And the bureaucracy attached to it is unbelievable. Yeah. So we've had a really conscious effort to go down more private sector funding, and they like numbers. So there is the academic thinking rounding isn't yet brilliant. It's not proven, but you can measure what's called social return on investment. We've had it done 3 times, all by universities, by Stirling, by Edinburgh, and by universities that UEFA, the football organisation, employ over in Switzerland. And each time over the period, we've come out with a return that's between £6.50 of social return for every pound that we invested. Right, so whether that's getting somebody back to work, making somebody active that previously wasn't active, the children in our school getting them their base level qualifications. So there is an academic model that is, it's not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but it's an awful lot better than nothing. So if we are talking to, people like Walter Scott or Bailey Gifford or Bain Capital or some of the guys who fund our programmes, it's important to have that backup that says it's not an exact science. However, UEFA have got the academics to look at this, and they've analysed this over a period of 18 months, and this is what the programme delivers. So we combine, the stories are always the best, but it's great to have the backup that says, look, this is the difference we're making. You can measure it. So it's a good balance.
It's very difficult to try and work out within being a social enterprise what your secret sauce is. But we're doing a research programme right now, a research study, with the Edinburgh University currently, with a kind of small group of young people that we're working with through our junior alternative school. So I think investing in things like that will give us a greater insight around about what that secret sauce is. because as I said, it is quite challenging to be able to try and kind of quantify it almost.
That's right. And what we try and align to some of our programs is that academic input. So the one that we did earlier, we were the first ones in the country to a very specific program on youth worker in a primary school. So the youth workers were working alongside the teachers and other staff in the school, and Edinburgh University sat alongside us in the first 3 years. So they were tracking what we did, what was the impact, what was the feedback. And so therefore at the end of it, you got loads of lessons out of the research, you got loads of evidence that then help us, and we get that almost fully funded now from various sources because the evidence is so strong of the impact. It's then mirrored by lots of other organisations now do it in Scotland, which is fantastic. So that, it enables us to share and get loads of others to benefit from it. So we, where possible, we try and attach, whether it's academic input or whatever's right to some of our programmes.
And from a funding point of view, then, do people just say, look, we buy into the whole project, and therefore there's a bit of cash, do with it what you want, or do they say we actually would like you to do this kind of thing, and this money is for that purpose?
Most have a theme. So they have a theme that is potentially education or youth work or making a difference somewhere. But most of the guys we work with allow us to come forward with 2 or 3 options.
Right.
So if this is what getting girls into sport, as might be an example, which is a big theme at the moment. So we might come up with options, and then invariably they'll support us either on the revenue funding, which is funding the ongoing programs. We've just finished last January, built a £1.5 million youth work and education building. So obviously we needed capital funding from that, which thankfully we got 100% funded. But again, that was a slightly different story. So it's saying to the funders, we're building this. Yeah, this is the impact it'll have on our school, on youth work, about we'll be able to work with far more kids, and it'll be able to help in much deeper through the facilities we've got within it. Yeah. So you very much got to tailor what they're looking for with what we need, and hopefully we get a match. But similarly, we give them feedback. So depending on the particular funder, how frequently they want it, but they've got an opportunity to come on site and watch everything in action if they want, or we can send them videos of what's happened, or we can go in and present. So
I think for me, it's been really interesting being involved in the funding landscape for such a long time that, on the back of COVID and us working more closely with the private sector, what we found there is that the funding relationship was much more based on trust rather than being a transactional relationship, where it's like, these are the outcomes. What box do you fit into? You've got to do a 10,000 word report every single year, and we're only going to give you funding for a year. So for us, it's been about working with funders that are willing to listen, willing to base our relationship fully on trust, and that they trust us to be able to deliver any outcomes that they would like us to achieve. And then also looking at that longer term funding, whether that's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And also, we've got a funder just recently actually that they've changed their annual report from a form, which wasn't, it wasn't a bad form or a nasty form, as I like to call them. It was quite simple, but they've just said, listen, every single year we just want 500 words. That's all you need to do. So we'll give you X and we'll give you over 2 years, but we just want 500 words. And actually it's quite difficult trying to put impact into 500 words, but how refreshing.
Yes.
Because you can spend so much time on the application, you can spend so much time trying to deliver the outcomes, and then you've got the reporting and the evaluation bit. So I do think there's funders out there that are willing to try things in a much different approach, and they're certainly the right funders for us.
Super.
We ask all our guests what your guiding principle is, but I want to change it because I don't think that's the right question to ask you guys. What I want to ask is, if I'm a business owner right now watching and I'm inspired by what you guys do and I run a good business and I got a bit of money, how can I help you guys? What can I do?
Give us it. No, I'm joking. No, listen, I think we try to spend our money very, very well, whether we make the money or it's donated to us or it's through our own fundraising streams. But it's challenging every single year. because there will be funders that will stop, there will be programs that will change. So we're always looking at different avenues to be able to invest wisely, but also help the people that are in the greatest needs. And we've spent the last year writing a new 3-year strategy. We've got 7 key growth initiatives that we would like to invest, but also need help in terms of investment there, whether that's around, we know that, and this has been based on quite a heavy external consultation with the local community and key stakeholders, but also an internal consultation that we undertook ourselves. So things like transition, kids aren't going to primary school, but they're going to primary school and then they go to secondary school. They're not going to go to secondary school, and that moment in terms of going from primary school to secondary is massive for a young person's life, especially if their home life isn't stable. We've got elements around STEM that we're really excited about because we know how engaging that is for the young people and creates that fun learning environment. And lots of other things that we would like to achieve over the next 3 years to make significant change to the local community of North Edinburgh. So we're always open to speaking to people. We love like-minded organisations, and we have so many funders and donors that are so generous every single year that we can't thank them enough for their support and their generosity.
How should they get in touch?
Just going on the website, there's our email addresses are there. I'm not going to give out my personal mobile number. But no, listen, like we understand that, money is tight across all different types of sectors and businesses and that. But, I think if you become part of the Spartans family, you will see a fantastic impact, a great organisation, brilliant people, whether it's employees or it's volunteers across the family, that ultimately is here for good. And that's our kind of motto, is here for good. And that's twofold. We want to be here to help change people's lives, but we also want to be here for a very, very long time.
Great motto, by the way.
There you go.
Love that.
Debbi, Craig, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. What a refreshing afternoon we have had, and we wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Edinburgh Business Stories. If you found it useful or inspiring, please do subscribe and follow along for more conversations just like this. And why not share it with your friends too, so that more people can hear these inspiring stories. We'd also love it if you could rate and review this podcast wherever you're listening. This helps more people to find us and ensures that we can keep bringing you these stories for years to come. And if there's someone you think that we should speak to, let us know. We're always looking for great stories to share. You can email us at edinburgh@businessstories.co.uk. And as always, a big thank you to Rathbones for partnering with us on this episode. Rathbones. Invest well, live well.